Hello again. I hope all of you are doing well. Welcome back to another early access video. If you're watching this on Patreon, thank you for supporting my page. If you're watching or listening to this on YouTube and you want to get access to this video a little bit earlier, as well as other sex positive content, feel free to head over to patreon.com/Cleveland Sex Therapy to get all of that good, sex education, sex research, and sex positivity that we all need in our lives. So today I wanted to talk about some of my favorite quotes from prolific sex therapists, sex researchers, and sex educators. So I chose I chose 7. So I'm going to read the quote to all of you, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about why it's one of my favorites and why I think it's so impactful. So this first one, I just talked about this in my first early access video, but this is from Emily Nagoski. She's a prolific, I guess that's going to be the word of the day, prolific. She's a phenomenal, very well educated and respected researcher in our field. She's also a sex educator. So her quote, "You are not promised time, you are promised change." And she's referring to this when she's talking about relationships with our partners. So why I love this quote, this is probably the most recent quote that I have heard and digested. I was at our annual ASECT conference. That's the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. It was in St. Louis this year, and I got the opportunity to listen to Emily speak for an hour on her new book, Come Together. And she talks a lot about gateways to desire. She talks about just different ways of understanding arousal and desire in the body. But anyways, with this, you are not promised time, you are promised change. She said this towards the end of her speech, and I remember turning to my colleagues and people who I was with and being like, oh my God, I'm blown away by this. I've never really thought this. And I was processing it with people afterwards. And I guess the point of this is we are not promised time with our partners. Our partners could leave us at any moment. Our partners could unfortunately pass away at any moment, right? Unexpectedly. But what we are promised is change. And why I think this is so why I think it just stuck with me so much is because it's not about change in this individual that's going to lead you and your relationship to being closer, right? For you to grow closer together. It's just talking about change in general. We're just promised change, right? All of us grow and evolve over time. At the recording of this video, I'm still currently in my relationship with my long-term partner. We've been together for close to 8 years at this point. And let me tell you, when I met him when I was 28, I was a completely different human then than now at 36. And so why I think this is so great for all of us to hear, but especially when I work with people in relationships, why I sort of have been championing this is because I want people to know and understand that the person that you meet in the beginning of the relationship may not be the person that you are currently dating. And so it's really important to understand that we all change and we all grow and we want to grow together. And how we do that is obviously through active and open communication and vulnerability. So love that quote. My cat Franklin just came in, so he may be joining us in a second. I gotta say, this is really sort of uncomfortable in such a good way. I'm trying not to edit this video at all, just to sort of have this sort of raw look at how my brain works. So that means cats will be joining us from time to time. So the second quote is by Dr. Chris Donaghue. He wrote a couple books, Sex Outside of the Lines, and Rebel Love. He He doesn't know this, but he's a mentor to me. He's based out of Los Angeles, and he's just a really radical sort of thinking therapist. And so he talks about, and this may not be his direct quote, but it's one that I've heard him say several times. And it's essentially that emotional intimacy and emotional connection really kills passion and play and desire. And so you may be thinking, what are you talking about? Like, emotional connection can lead us to wanting more sex, more connection. And to some degree, when you have that thought, that makes sense, right? Especially if you're a vulva owner. Vulva owners tend to build a lot of emotional connection with their partners. It's something that happens due to a lot of societal conditioning as well. But what this talks about is the deeper we get into a relationship, the more we know our partner, the less novel they are to us. And because of that, this newness that can spark a lot of this passion that we have for our partner really goes away. It gets smothered by the deep emotional bonds that we have. And then it is up to us to really put in the effort to get that desire back or to keep that passion going. I like to say it's not if passion fades in a relationship, it's when it fades. Because it's going to. Humans, we love newness, we love novelty, and our partners really become antiques to us. And I mean that in such a great way, right? My partner, we are antiques to each other. We really have to work on building that spark, building that passion again in our relationship every so often, because it will fade away. So this is one of the main topics I talk a lot about with clients in session. All right, so this next one, this is interesting. I put myself as the speaker originator of this quote, but I'm not at all. This is something that a lot of people talk about. In fact, I wrote Matt and others. But this quote is, consent changes moment to moment. And I think, especially since the Me Too movement, this has been something that we talk a lot about with our clients, and we talk a lot about in general, is that just because I consent to something 10 minutes ago does not mean I'm still consenting to it at this moment. It is up to me and my partner to create constant communication over our experiences and over what we're doing, right? This is huge because as humans, we're allowed flexibility. We're allowed to change our minds from time to time. We're allowed to change our minds from moment to moment. Think about, this desire that you have, for instance, going on roller coasters. I am terrified of roller coasters, which is interesting because it's not a heights thing. It's a Final Destination thing, really. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not super scared of heights. I don't mind flying, all of that stuff. But I get to these amusement parks that I go to. I don't go to amusement parks often. It's probably been over a decade at this point. But when I'm there, I'm like, I'm not going on this ride. I'm not going on this ride. I'm not going on this ride. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm going on this ride. And everyone gets excited. My partner who loves roller coasters, or the friends I'm with who love roller coasters, they get excited. But then if I say, you know what, I changed my mind, what happens? Disappointment. People feel really upset by it potentially. And then I feel pressure to what? To keep going, to doing it, to like, okay, well, I don't want to anymore. I've changed my mind, but because I said yes, I guess I have to. And that's a trap a lot of us fall into, right? And so if you are in a relationship, or even if you're not in a relationship, I think it's really important, the people that you care about, to talk about how changing our minds is very common, and consent, this idea of consenting to something, can shift moment to moment. Next up, this is from Melissa Walker. She wrote a book called Somatic Sex Therapy. It's really great. I took a training from her in April. I'm going to take another training from her in September. So, she talks about this in her book. She wrote, "Sexual creativity is blocked by social conditioning." Yeah, that resonated with me so much as a sex therapist. Well, I should say not only as a sex therapist, but also as a human. This idea that we are born into this world with this sexuality that is ours, right? And then over time, all of society and religion and culture and media and music and entertainment and books and friends and family who are also impacted by all of those things impact us and put us in these little boxes of how we're supposed to be. And so, God, I just really loved how she phrased that, right? This idea that, a lot of our sexuality is given to us. A lot of the messaging is given to us, and it's up to us to sort of weed our garden, if you will. Really look and see, is this message or thought really serving me at this stage of my life? Okay, next up. Okay, so this one is from Brene Brown. Brene Brown is pretty well known in a lot of circles, just talking a lot about shame. So she talks about vulnerability as having the courage to show up when you do not know the outcome. And this is just really the key and core of a lot of therapy in general. We want to practice being vulnerable so that we can show our partners our true authentic selves, and we can show the world who we are. And we don't want to be vulnerable all the time. That would be really exhausting. Vulnerability is really made for us to express it to people that we trust and care about. And I think the problem is we block our vulnerability from showing up, even with those that we love, because we're still really scared about what could happen to us. So being vulnerable is super courageous, and I don't think everyone should give it away to everyone they ever meet. But vulnerability is where we see a lot of change and growth in relationships. So it's important to remember that as you navigate this world. Next up, the great Ester Perel. Ester Perel has a phenomenal podcast called Where Should We Begin, I believe. And she's written a couple books, State of Affairs and Mating in Captivity. She's awesome. And so this quote from her that I enjoy is, "Our partner's sexuality does not belong to us." And this is really controversial and quite honestly really threatening for a lot of people. And I get why it's threatening, 100%. I get it. When we get in relationships, we are taught about ownership, right? You are mine, I am yours. So I get why we would think that we would have a say over another human's life or their sexuality or how they navigate the world. And we don't. We just don't. We don't have that. And it's important for us to remember that. The example I use often is porn, right? A lot of people really like porn, and a lot of people really hate porn. And so if I go up to my partner and I say, "You cannot watch porn, I forbid it," yeah, that's not my call, right? I can't tell somebody what to do with their sexuality and their body. What I can do is set a boundary and say, "Listen, if you watch porn, I'm going to have to end this relationship because I don't like it." 100%, right? You're allowed to have that belief, and then you're allowed to exit the relationship. But you can't say, "You cannot watch porn. I forbid it. And you're gross if you watch it," and all of these things. We don't own people. And so if we do want to stay in this relationship with somebody and they do watch porn and we feel really threatened by it, it's up to us to understand why it feels like such a threat, and then tap into that vulnerability and talk about it with our partners. And last, I just have various. This is sort of just a key to all of sex therapy. Anything that takes place between 2 or more consenting adults is their business and no one else's. So, yeah, this just has to do a lot with, people who want to explore their sexual selves, right? If I want to engage in threesomes, or I want to engage in water sports, or I want to engage in fisting or forms of BDSM, and I go and find someone to do that with me, right? It doesn't mean I'm a deviant. It doesn't mean I'm nasty. It just means that I'm engaging in my sexuality, right? So that's important to remember. Another one I could say is don't yuck someone's yum, right? So try your hardest not to really judge people based on their sexual wants and desires. Really think about why you would have to put somebody down for wanting to explore something. It's okay to not be into something, but then to put somebody down, that's where we need to look internally about what's going on with ourselves. So, okay, that's it. Those are some of my favorite sayings, quotes. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some information from it, right? A lot of these videos, why I'm going to sort of do this sort of raw, unedited look in some ways is because, I want you all to sort of see how the mind of a sex therapist works in some way, right? Based off of my experiences, my own privileges, my views, and just how I navigate. So again, thank you for watching or listening to this. And if you haven't, again, head over to patreon.com/Cleveland Sex Therapy. So that's all I got for you. Until next time.